Okay, did we do it? Yes. Let's freaking go. Alright, we did it. 1.03% of people have made it this far. Okay, first things first. The bottom center of the screen says that we have beaten 49 games in 2024 and 496 since we started doing this in 2020. Those numbers are now incorrect. We've now beaten 50 games in 2024 and 497 since we started doing this in 2020. Let's go. All right, let's talk about the ups and downs of the Technomancer. And I apologize in advance. I do have a pretty bad cold, but we will get through it together. I am familiar with Spiders, the developer of this game, because I have played 2 of their games previously. One was right when I first started doing this back in 2020. I played Bound by Flame, because back then I was doing like an alphabetical thing, so I was playing a lot of games started with A, B, C, D, and I hated it. It was one of the first games I really hated, because it was just bad. It's just a bad game. And I've also played Steel Rising. I played that last year, and that game was great. Of course, I love Souls-likes, so I probably ranked it higher than it really deserved, but it was a good game. This game, I think, is even worse than Bound by Flame. Now, exactly why is hard to say, because I played that game so long ago, and I remember only the very broadest of strokes as to why I even hated it to begin with, but I think it was a lot of the same reasons. But I'll tell you the number one reason. So overall, I hate this game. This is one of the worst games I've ever played, I think. I don't usually try to just brutalize games when these reviews and stuff, but this one I think really deserves it. It's just an objectively bad game. I think it's not just that it's not just a preference thing. It's not just that it wasn't for me. I think this game is bad. It is a Dollar Tree version of Mass Effect. It's very obvious that they tried to do a Mass Effect thing, and they shit the bed so hard that it's almost hard to believe. Let me tell you why. First and foremost, the combat. Now, the combat in games like Mass Effect isn't notoriously good, but this game has maybe the worst combat I've ever experienced in a game. Maybe the very worst. I will tell you that the main reason is that when you are swinging your weapon, it just goes through enemies. I think it's because they're like dodging, like they have iframes, which, first of all, why would an enemy have significant iframes? That's an odd choice anyway, but they're broken. Like they're like 60% of the time that you're swinging your weapon at enemies, maybe more, it's just going right through them. And they're not even really dodging. They're just kind of like, and it's while they're hitting you even. The iframes don't make any sense. It's even generous to call them iframes. It's more likely that the game's just broken. And so because of that, the combat is one of the most frustrating experiences I have ever had in any game playing anything. It's just, you're swinging your weapon like a madman, and I'd say 1 time out of 4 you're hitting your enemy, and the rest of it you're having to dodge their attacks, and it's just horrible. It's just really bad. The hitboxes are broken or something, and it's every single enemy. Or actually, you know what? It's just human enemies. Because the alien enemies, like the creatures and stuff in this game, are a breeze. And that brings me to the second larger problem, which is related to this, is that there is a huge balance issue with this game. Because you can fight a boss that's like a giant millipede or a fucking insect creature alien thing, and it's a freaking breeze. Because you can dodge really easily. They don't have that problem where most of your attacks go through them, so it's just really easy, at least on normal. But the humanoid enemies, you just run into a group of like 3 human dudes in an alley, you are going to have a bad time. They hit you for half of your health a lot of the time, or very close to it, they are very hard to hit, and they're very easy to get hit by. And so I would go and destroy 3 bosses in a row, and then die 30 times to 2 dudes in an alley. I'm not joking. Actually, that's an understatement. I think it was a lot more than 30. I did a lot in this game. And almost every time was because of some human that was way too powerful. So there's a difficulty balance problem with this game. And a lot of that has to do with how the combat's broken. So, the story was dumb. I don't think it was very good. It wasn't engaging at all. The characters are, the thing that drives games like Mass Effect is that the characters are so interesting. They've got really cool backstories. They're well voiced. They have this flavor to them that makes you want to spend more time with them. No character in this had that. The voice acting was D tier. I wouldn't say it was the worst I've heard, but it wasn't the worst I've heard, but it was not good. The backstories were basically non-existent. The characters, even the best characters in this game, were just caricatures of cooler Mass Effect characters. And so I had no interest in the story at all. As far as the larger story about being on Mars and everything and the Technomancers and stuff, it was very all surface level, not really that deep or interesting at all. It doesn't even begin to go. And I hate to keep comparing this to the Mass Effect series, but that's very clearly what it's inspired by. And it just doesn't even come close when it comes to the story and the lore and all that stuff. It's just not, it's a pale comparison. What else? Let's talk about what was, I will say there's one good thing about this game that I will give it credit for. It is very ambitious. It's got 3 different skill trees. It's got a ton of characters in it. It's got all these different locations. It's got all these different menus and ways that you can interact with the game. But the problem is, so I'm happy that they really swung for the fences. I'll give them that. But on that note, that just reminded me of there's 40 things wrong with this game. I can't name them all here, but the UI, I just talked about the UI. The UI is horrible. It is very hard to get around. It's not intuitive at all. It doesn't make any sense. Well, especially when it came to missions and waypoints, they were all over the place. Sometimes you just wouldn't have the mission marker. Sometimes it would be in the wrong place. Sometimes it would be, the description on it would be wrong. There were all kinds of problems with the UI, and it was really, really, really bad, especially the map and waypoints. What else was I talking about? Oh, the characters, we already talked about how they were poorly voiced. I was just talking about, they tried to pack a lot in when it came to the skill trees and stuff, and it was okay. That was probably the best part of the game, was that you had a lot of highly customizable skills. You had 3 different stances, kind of like in Neo or something, and you had different moves and weapons for each of those sets. That was really cool. But the thing is, since you put skills into those abilities, it really doesn't make sense to experiment much with that. I just picked one stance at the beginning of the game and stuck with it for the whole game. And it would have been dumb to change that up at any point, because I'd already invested skill points in it, and I wasn't going to spread those around, because then you don't get the best skills. So that was ill-fated. It was just misguided. It just didn't, on paper it sounds cool, but it didn't really, the execution was poor. The loot grind in this game is meaningless. It's worthless. You just get the same. There's no rarity based anything or whatever, which is fine. But you just pick up the same soldiers' boots and soldiers' uniforms over and over and over and over again. You really don't get anything different. Most of the stuff that I kept everything that I was equipped with almost until the very end of the game, at which point I went to some merchant right before the end of the game, and I just bought all the most expensive shit. And I was stronger at that point. But there was really no point. None of the stuff that I was wearing was stuff I picked up from people. Well, I think 1 or 2, maybe. It's not the worst loot grind I've ever seen, but it was mostly boring. It was if you see a chest in most games, it's ooh, what's going to be in there? See a chest, it's do I want to, is it worth the time for me to open it? And often the answer would be no, and I would just walk right by them. It was just pointless. You would either get no gear at all. You just get like crafting materials or maybe a health vial or something. Or if you did get loot, it would be some jacket you've seen 30 times already that you're gonna just break down for materials or sell later for more health injections. So that was pretty bad too. All in all, this game sucks. It's a really bad game. I think it's a very objectively bad game. There's not really much about it that's good other than that they tried to do a lot of things good. That's the best thing about it. They really tried. They really tried to do a lot of things. But they pretty much failed at every turn. So I'm just glad that it's over because it was a long game. All right. That's it. Last order of business. Technomancer, it's been something. I'm still glad that we got an opportunity to play you, and I am still going to play Greedfall. That was the reason I played this, because I wanted to play Greedfall, because Greedfall 2 is going to come out at some point, and I was like, I should play the Technomancer first, because that came out before this one, and I'd already played Bound by Flame. That was a mistake. But in any case, we are now going to uninstall you from our console and never play you again. Bye. Bye-bye.